Lando Norris so far has been one of my drivers of the season, and when I do my traditional end of season videos with my top 5 best and my top 5 worst drivers, he will definitely be on that list. Now, as far as which list I'm referring to, I'll leave you in suspense. But anyway, despite McLaren not being as competitive as last season, Lando has maintained his very high level of performance and, more importantly, consistency in 2022. It's got to the point where, for me, he's proved everything he can in a midfield car and under midfield levels of pressure. The next stage is to be tested in a car that is capable of race wins and under levels of pressure that Lando has never experienced before. He's earned that opportunity to be tested under those circumstances, but is McLaren still the team that will give him that opportunity? Lando in 2022 and at this point in his career almost reminds me of Leclerc during 2020 and 2021. And what I mean by this is that it's clear that with the cars that he's been given, there's not much more that he can achieve other than grab the odd podium and keep fighting for best of the rest behind the established top teams. In the same way that in 2020 and 2021, I was waiting to see what Leclerc could do in a race-winning car because I felt as though he had reached a level to where he deserved that opportunity. I think Lando has also reached that same point. The difference between Lando and Charles, however, is that when Charles beat a 4-time world champion in his first season at Ferrari and only his second season in Formula 1, we knew that he was special. With Lando, however, in his first 2 seasons, he wasn't quite able to beat Carlos Sainz, which is fine. I mean, he was inexperienced at the time, and even then, he was always fairly close anyway. The reason why I bring this up is that it makes gauging how good Lando is right now much more difficult. Despite dominating Ricciardo in the last 2 years, Ricciardo is driving at such a compromised level and mentally is so shattered that despite us knowing how good Ricciardo once was, I really don't think we can genuinely use Ricciardo as any kind of benchmark. Of course, the last couple of seasons can be taken in 2 ways. Either you can say that the very reason Ricciardo has struggled is partly because Lando's performances have literally broken Ricciardo down mentally, and that's actually a sign of how good Lando is. Or you can say that even though in isolation what he's been doing at McLaren is phenomenal, since being beaten by Sainz, we haven't yet seen this new and improved Lando really go up against an established driver at their best. What happens if Alonso, Perez, or even Sainz again went up against him in the same car? This is why, to me, Lando is almost like this great unknown. We know he's definitely got race-winning potential, that to me is not even a debate, but we just don't have a reliable and solid comparison with which we can accurately gauge how good Lando is right now, and that's why to me he is so intriguing and so exciting as a driver. As far as which driver and teammate pairing I am most looking forward to watching next season, by far, without any hesitation, it's got to be Oscar Piastri going up against Lando Norris. After this whole Piastri drama over the summer, there is so much pressure around Lando to maintain his grip on the team as the number 1, Oscar to actually justify his decision to force his way out of Alpine in favour of McLaren, and then also the team itself to actually start showing signs of improvement. The dynamic between Lando and Oscar is going to be box office to watch. Lando fully believes in himself that he's the future of McLaren, and if they ever do give him a championship-capable car, he is the one who's going to bring that title home. But at the same time, Oscar hasn't come to McLaren to play second fiddle. Rookie or not, he's going to want to beat Lando straight away. And how that speed, competitiveness, and mental superiority complex between the 2 drivers is going to play out, I can't wait to see. In the context of Lando, obviously beating Oscar will be his target because, like all drivers who want to be world champions, you have to keep beating whoever's put in front of you, and Lando in particular will have to keep proving that he's the future of the team by making sure Oscar doesn't build any momentum with which he might be able to supersede Lando at McLaren. In the here and now, even though I do think it's difficult to accurately compare or even predict how good Lando is compared to the absolute best drivers on the grid, what is very clear is that in the midfield context, he has quickly morphed into almost the full package. Around 1 lap, Lando has been mighty with an average qualifying position of 8.32, which puts him only second to Alonso outside of the top 3 teams. It should also be said that, unlike Alonso, Lando is the only driver in the midfield who hasn't yet been knocked out in Q1. In the races, to be brutally honest, he's almost been a bit anonymous. And that is not a negative, by the way. That's more to say that there hasn't been too much drama with both him and also McLaren. Lando qualifies well and more often than not has gone on to convert that into strong points-paying positions. In terms of his racecraft, because of his amazing qualifying, he's never really been put into that position to fight with other cars. Unless there's a genuine chance to keep top cars behind him like in Singapore, he doesn't usually waste time with the likes of Max or Charles because he's got that experience and maturity to know that that's not his race. But we did see in Austin that when he is asked to overtake, Lando is more than capable of carving his way through the field to make an alternative strategy work. The cherry on top is also his lack of incidents. He doesn't really get into them. Apart from maybe Miami, where maybe you could say that he could have given Pierre Gasly, who was driving with a damaged car, a bit more space, Lando has been one of the cleanest drivers on the grid over the past 2 seasons. All of this combined with a bit of luck from the fact that Alpine have not maximized the speed of their car is why Lando currently sits best of the rest in the championship in 7th. And if we're being honest, he is actually a comfortable 7th. Ocon, who's behind him, is 30 points further back. And with 3 races to go, unless Lando and McLaren absolutely self-destruct, that gap in the midfield can't be closed. Now, a quick word on the 2022 car. I am not saying for a second that it's quicker than the Alpine over the course of the whole season, but it's also not as bad as some people have made it out to be. As I said, I'm not even taking what Ricciardo is doing as some kind of ceiling of where that car is. I have said a million times, and I'm going to continue to say this a million times more. The performance of a car is dictated by what the fastest driver is able to get out of it. If you look over the course of the whole season, and ignore Bahrain where the team had brake issues that limited their performance, McLaren have been prolific with bringing updates and developing the car. They've been far more consistent than say Haas or Alfa Romeo, who have completely fallen off a cliff, and the biggest advantage that this car has had has been reliability. For Lando, apart from Canada where he was suffering from a PU issue, he has not had a reliability-related DNF this whole season, whilst if we compare that to Alonso, Fernando has had 3 DNFs in Jeddah, Monza and Singapore, and then he's also had other issues like his car breaking down before the sprint in Austria. Lando has been so good that he's capitalized every single time Alpine have dropped the ball. That is why he is comfortably P7, and that is why he's almost single-handedly kept McLaren in that fight for P4 in the Constructors. To me, Lando is ready to be tested at the next level of fighting for wins, where the scrutiny and spotlight will be brighter than he's ever experienced before. But of course, like in many cases, the limiting factor isn't him, it's the car. We know McLaren are right in the middle of a major factory upgrade with a brand new wind tunnel and driver simulator loop. The timeline for that means that the first car that will be designed with all of these new resources fully utilized is 2024. That is McLaren's big year when they will have to show all of their cards with no excuses. But what if McLaren are still just a midfield team? How long is Lando going to wait for McLaren? And at what point does he start to wonder whether what his old mate Carlos Sainz did by jumping ship when the opportunity came to him is something that he should consider himself? And if a team like Red Bull at the end of 2023 came calling to get him into a championship-capable car right now, is it something that he should seriously consider? Now, most people might be thinking, why would you want to step into Max's team? If an opportunity to win races comes up, whilst McLaren are still promising that next year will be their year at the cost of going up against Max Verstappen, if you back yourself, how can you not at least consider that option? When you turn down race-winning cars, there is never a guarantee that opportunity will come round again. Carlos Sainz was one of the best drivers in the midfield, doing exactly what Lando is doing now, and he didn't shy away of stepping straight into Leclerc's team when the opportunity presented itself. Lando is ready to at least try and fight for a world title, but how long will he wait at McLaren if there's no sign of progress? 2023? 2024? 2025? I don't really know. I'm gonna leave that question for you to decide in the comments.